The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Rib. And boy, we got a whole boatload of stuff to talk about today because we went to the MBTA. We should get the village people down and change it from YMCA to MBTA.
Exactly.
To that meeting. And it was a pretty good meeting.
Right.
And we had some I don't know if you want to go where you're looking right now or you want to talk about
well, you know, the interesting thing that really bothered me about this meeting was as the people who wanted to vote no on this were talking, all of a sudden, all the presenters said, we need to get somebody from the other side. Remember hearing that? We need to hear people from the other side.
Who they had planted in the audience.
Which they had planted in the audience, right.
Okay. Yeah,
a guy who moved to Fall River 10 years ago.
Yeah, because
he was expecting the tea 10 years ago.
10 years ago. And everything, by the way, remember what else he said? I work with people in Boston and everywhere from Worcester and everywhere that went, they loved it. Everybody loves the tea. Apparently, he doesn't read the Boston Herald if he works in Boston, and the Boston Globe and Channel 5 News up there that are talking about all the communities that are having issues with the tea. So, you know, obviously he was a plant. And then the other guy, I love the other guy. I've worked all over the world. I'm an urban planner, and I'm coming back to Fall River. Really? Well, I'll tell you what. I think you need a mental examination if you left Paris or Stockholm or someplace from throughout the world to come to Fall River because of what? The fact that our educational system can't break the top 200 that we're loaded with crime. You know, these are the whole things. Look, they're looking at it. Look, he's an urban planner. Gee, I'll bet you he's involved in some urban planning around here and he's making money.
Right.
And he'll probably move away from Fall River when this is done. I mean, look. Everybody that was pro-tea is pro-tea because of the money. And the money they're going to make. It's pretty obvious. The people who are presenting against it care about the people in Fall River, the average people, and the damage, the human toll it's going to take. But let's get to that because
Well, one of the things, you know, we spoke about how we've been saying one and done, one and done, one and done. Well, MBTA attorney Kevin Scanlon said that if Fall River voters reject the MBTA membership on the November ballot, the issue could be placed again on future ballots. There's nothing in the statute that says one and done, Scanlon said, adding that any subsequent vote would have to be passed to meet the MBTA deadline of each January. Well, because we can only be added to the MBTA in January.
And let's see how many bobbleheads, because let me get this. See, I love lawyer language because he said could be. So you can't pin him down and say it would be.
Right.
So because that's exactly the response that Nelson got from Representative Fiola about the home rule petition, which apparently now they don't want to talk about. They want to talk about having another election because I guess they realized after they were told that a home rule petition is not, you can't overturn an election. They realized that it's going to be on them because one of the great things that happened in that thing was Randy Hunt, the CPA, said, you say no, it's no, we can't come.
That's right.
So now, if they did an initiative petition, it would be obvious that our representative delegation is responsible, and it's on them. And they'd never get reelected, especially with somebody like Representative Fiola, whose husband is going to make a lot of money from this project.
Right.
So I guess they've left.
Oh, and we got to remember, one of the MBTA officials watches our show.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, me too. And by the way, I'm glad you did that because you know we just start and we don't use a script here. We don't have the teleprompter with all the laws. And by the way, you didn't cover Chapter 10, Section 35T, which talks about contributions. And that's one of the issues. But listen, it was an okay presentation. I'm not gonna, that's their job.
That's right.
It's their job. I don't, and I was, and I invite Randy and that whole crew to come on. Maybe we can get an hour from BCC to have a real discussion, in depth. Nobody's going to shut the mic off on anybody.
Right.
We'll have an hour to talk about and ask and have all our questions answered, because it started out with a pretty intense presentation.
Yes,
there.
it did.
And then when that individual got into some sweetheart deals that are alleged to have been made, they couldn't get the mic out of her hand quick enough.
Right.
It was like, get her off. We got to get somebody else to speak. You've had enough time. I don't want to hear about the sweetheart deals. And frankly, we were sitting in the back, and she was on the mic, and I kind of didn't get the companies that were involved, but she had some pretty specific information.
She was naming the contractors.
Yeah.
She was naming the contractors from the T project.
And boy, did that rattle them.
Exactly.
Did that rattle them. So this is the problem. Listen, I'm sure that, look, Randy is a CPA, and you're welcome to come on. You're welcome to, you watch our show. Why didn't you talk about 35T, Section 10? There's a whole bunch of things that we have to look at here. You did clarify the multiplier principle. We're going to get a 1, but you said it's forever. I'm not sure if that's forever, because they change everything. Look, you're a CPA. I will not question your ability to do the numbers, but 35T talks about the budget. It talks about 103%. But then there's another section in 161 that talks about deficits and what you do in a deficit. It's also in 35T, I believe. But I know those fairly well now. And so, I like that little attempt at aspersion to be. I had a program called, a little knowledge is dangerous.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something, Randy. You have a lot of knowledge being a CPA, and every CPA I know is pretty good with numbers, and I'm sure you are. But every CPA I've ever met has a myopic view of the world. They think everything's a number. Remember, the CPA that was involved in Fall River called retirees who worked their entire life for the city of Fall River liabilities, because that's the way she looked at them. They're not human beings. They're not people living on a fixed income. They're not people of low income. They're liabilities. Of course, when she was called on it by me, she said, oh, that's not the context she meant it in. That's right. It probably wasn't. But that's the way they think. And you were up there talking about this, and fine. You're saying that we will, and the other thing I think was interesting, and please, Randy, if you watch the show, contact us. Get on our, email us, or come on the show. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to get the implication that I drew when you started talking about we will never have to pay the MBTA because it will always be our credit will always offset what we pay. You made a very interesting comment. Didn't he say that because the MBTA is capped at 2%, which
2.5%.
Which I'm not sure of, because the law says 3% on the budget increase, and then if there's a deficit, they can increase it. So is that based on the adjusted base of 1.3? See, 103%. So there's a lot of questions that went unanswered, but I'll take his word that it's going to be offset. But what I thought was interesting is you made that comment that, well, your contract with CERTA has a far bigger cap, so you may never catch up.
Right.
So that calls into question our CERTA contract.
That's right.
Are we overpaying for our regional transit authority?
It's quite possible.
And, they're good at mixing up numbers, because he threw around, 1.5 million. I read you got $1 million in a cushion. That million isn't all Fall Rivers. Aren't communities assessed on the community itself?
Yes.
So Fall River, that's that 1.5 or 1.4 that nobody can agree on, but the 1.5 million isn't all Fall River's money. $600,000 of that 1.5 is Fall River's money.
Right.
Is that correct?
At this point in time.
And if it's not, Randy, please, feel free. But I'd rather have you here. We'll give you we'll give you an hour. And look, I'm going to respect your answers, but your answers were not concrete. You know, you made the observation that, oh, they'll never change the law, but I had to point out that they've already changed the law on August 10th.
Right.
They change the law all the time. They actually proposed changing the law without changing the law by initiating a home rule petition to overturn a no vote.
Right.
Which they now know that won't go. And now their lawyer, and it's an opinion, of course, what opinion is he going to have? It's like the Corporation Counsel. He works for the MBTA.
That's right.
We can have an election every year because there's nothing in the statute. There's nothing in the statute that says you can't have an election as many times as you want. So I guess Trump better get back in the court right now and tell him, what the hell's the matter with you? Let's have another election for president. I wasn't satisfied with the outcome.
Right.
So let's have an election until we win.
Right.
So what good are elections? I mean, I don't know if that's going to stand the smell test in court. And I can guarantee you, you're going to go to court on that one. If there's a no vote and you try to bring it in again, first of all, the city council will have to initiate that.
Right.
And they will have their heads if they do that. If they're gonna try to deny an election result and try for a second bite of the apple, they will be held responsible. So that's number one. And number two, like I said, the reality is that they never made a concrete commitment. He said, well, I think you'll never have to pay. They did agree that, you know, the MBTA is in horrible financial condition.
That wasn't an argument, right?
That wasn't an argument. They did agree that, you know, they did. But then when I brought up Rockport in the lawsuit, see, this is what they did in Rockport.
They
Well, go talk to the lawyer. I said, I don't want to talk to the lawyer because there's no reason. Well, what did Rockport say that I said on the last show? They said that they held a gun to their head by trying to deny them state aid.
Right.
And that's what they do. The MBTA bullies people.
Right.
They bully people into doing it. You don't get us, you lose state aid. You don't change your zoning in our favor, you lose state aid. And so that's why I said I don't want to talk to the lawyer. Go litigate it. But what did Rockport say? It said they gave the developers special treatment.
That's right. And that's exactly what they're doing in Fall River.
And that's the key. The key is, listen, you guys made a good presentation, and I'll accept what you said. We may not pay for a while, so maybe I'm not the kind of guy that says I don't care, because by the time we start paying and it becomes a budget buster like it is all around Boston, and they change things, because I respectfully, I will agree to disagree with you, Randy, that they change laws all the time. As a matter of fact, I've seen hundreds of home rule petitions that basically circumvent the law. So you're a CPA. You're not involved in a political process. I was, as a union leader. I saw hundreds of home rule petitions run through that legislature to circumvent existing law. And there's, so everything is speculative. Look, I'm not going to say I have a crystal ball, because I don't. Everything is speculative. What isn't speculative is we're paying. Contrary to what Clueless Paul, and I'm going to wrap this up so you can get in here, because I know I've been, but what Captain Clueless said, we are paying for it. We're paying 60 million pennies already.
Right.
We're getting credit for it, but we're paying for the MBTA. And next year we'll pay more than 60 million pennies, because the cost of CERTA will go up again. So we've got that revelation. But you know what got me? I saw the little soundbite there. Captain Clueless strikes again. They interview Paul, and there he is. Oh, yeah. We got a lot of students, and a lot of shoppers, and a lot of Red Sox fans that are going to love the train. Really? Captain Clueless strikes again. He stalked the halls of Durfee High for years. We're going to put students on a train to send them to Boston? To do what? Shop for Gucci bags? Does he know that the majority of people in our school system are on a lunch program because they don't have money?
Right.
Apparently he doesn't. Again, privileged Paul and his perspective based on lawyers, developers, bankers, all his rich friends, lawyers, maybe they can go shopping and shoppers. So we eliminated the students. The majority of students here are having a hard time. Their parents are having a hard time paying their rent and stuff. They're not going on a train to Boston. Shoppers, well, maybe you're going to go there because you're making 120 G's plus your pension, and then you got your wife's income. So you got you're doing pretty well. You can go up and shop for a $3,000 Gucci bag up in Boston and pay $25 for a hamburger or something like that. But, you know, the average person in Fall River is not jumping on a train to go shopping in Boston. They're not going to do it. They can go to the Braintree Mall. It's a lot closer. And most people in Fall River that you don't even realize exist, which is the majority of people, are the people who shop at Walmart. And then it's like, and people going to the Red Sox game? What are you, nuts? Have you ever seen a tee? I've gone to a Red Sox game on a tee from Quincy Adams. It's going to take you an hour and a half on a good day to get to Boston. Then you're going to have to jump over on a green line, and that thing takes forever because they're packed in like sardines.
Yep.
And most people will say, well, the hell with it. If I'm going to suffer an hour and a half in Fall River and pay parking, tee fee, I'll pay a lower fee and the same parking up at Quincy Adams, and I'll have a short ride into Boston. I'll cut it down. You know, you make no sense, Paul, because you don't live in our world. I saw the president of the Flint Association there. He was not happy. Joe Cavallo, who lives in Flint, wasn't happy. People of regular, you know, because there's no address. And after the meeting, I did go and talk to a few of them, and they were good. And one of them admitted, I said, look, this is going to displace a lot of people. There are a lot of negatives here. People, and she admitted it. But what they said was it could improve. Oh, I know people today on radio. I know people who are going to move to Fall River because it's got the T. Really? If you do, I want their names. Well, you don't need to give me names. Just tell me the amount of people, and I'll tell you the amount of people that are displaced by the increase in rents.
Right.
You're going to displace 50,000 people, and you're going to get, what, 10 people moving down it? And they're not moving to Fall River for the most part. They're going to move to the greater Fall River area if they move at all, and I think that's pie in the sky. So with that, you know, Captain Clueless, I want to know what parent is going to send their student up to Boston unescorted, as bad as the T can be and as bad as Boston can be. You're just, I don't know. You're just living in a different world.
I will give them one thing that they had right. Okay? The T will go, as it does now, from Fall River to Middleborough, and then Middleborough to Bridgewater University, because it goes right there.
Yeah.
Okay? So, yeah, maybe we will have
a few people are
going to go to Bridgewater University.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But you know what? Does a few people justify $1 billion? That's the big question. Now, you mentioned parking. Well, I asked that question.
Oh, you're terrible.
I know, I'm terrible. I said, you're going to have 200 plus parking spaces down at the train station, correct? Well, something like that is what I was told. I said, okay, who is going to manage it? Oh, the MBTA. I said, so the MBTA is going to manage it. Well, yeah, we manage all our stations. I said, no, you don't. See, here's where the misinformation comes out. I said, no, you don't. I said, I'll give you one right off the top, Quincy Adams. You don't manage that one. And it costs $7 to $10 to park there. Oh, yeah, well, that was Kyocera. They're not going to manage this one. I said, well, who's going to manage it? Probably somebody local. And I said right then and there, I said, well, if it's Ken Fiola, I said, it's a no vote right off the bat. I said, it's a no vote right off the bat. I said, because that's ridiculous.
So local management means local people pocketing money, and
Correct.
Those local people are always connected people.
Correct.
Who would, yeah. And we all know that they were involved. They're involved in a downtown parking.
Right.
That's been.
And we've seen how they've managed that.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's fallen apart. But I remember, the rest of his soul, Stewie Kuznets, who was a friend of mine, used to get a check quarterly from there.
Yeah.
Because he was involved. But as you said, isn't it ironic that they say their MBTA, but then she admitted that she even knew who was managing Quincy Adams.
Right.
So this is the whole thing. Look, it's their job. They're there hyping it. They want the train. They're going to look at everything through rose-colored glasses. And okay, I will freely say that, okay, now, based on what the CPA said, I will say that we probably won't be paying more to the MBTA over the top of what we're paying to CERTA. But now it calls into question about how much we're paying CERTA.
Right.
Because when he said that, you could see when he said, like, he was kind of surprised that there was no cap on, there wasn't like a 2% cap.
Right.
And he made that statement offhandedly, but if you pay attention to things like I do. But we're talking about this, and numbers, the old saying, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. That law 161 is just like, chapter 10. You need to be a CPA. Granted, it would take you or I maybe 6 months to figure out how much we're going to charge people. It'd probably take him, 6 hours, or 6 minutes. I don't know.
Well, I asked them what the fare was going to be.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
Yeah. So these are all the kind of things that have to be answered and asked. But to me, it transcends this. Did they say that it's not going to cost us money right now in a short term? Yeah. Did they guarantee it wouldn't be in a long term? No, they didn't.
And they refused to, because you asked them that.
And they said, I think they won't change the law, which I don't believe. And like I say, we can respectfully disagree on that.
Well, they're going to have to change the law. The MBTA is so broke.
And they admitted that.
And they admitted that they're going to have to. Now, after the meeting is where the fireworks really started, okay? I had a representative from the MBTA, who shall remain nameless, and I asked them very clearly why we have to give up our self-governance of our zoning. That isn't us. That was Governor Baker. I said, yeah, well, tell Governor Baker to shove it. I said, because let me tell you something. This has been nothing but a decimation to Fall Rivers communities. I said, the bottom line is this. The law says that affordable housing should be considered, but it says considered. Doesn't say it's mandatory. And what's happened here in Fall River? Our mayor, and when I said that, if his head would have flung any faster, it would have cracked. I said, and our Bristol County Economic Development Consultant have said they will not support affordable housing, that they refuse to have affordable housing. They are only going to promote market rate housing. Well, this is what the T person said. Well, what you have to do is you have to organize and get rid of your elected officials.
Well, the T is great at that. I also went up after the thing and I asked them about Bourne, because they mentioned Bourne, because we know what happened in Bourne.
Exactly.
We did it on the show. Bourne said we wanted to get out, and their corporation counsel said you can't. They used the same argument as this lawyer, but it's an opinion. You can only get in. The law only states how you get in.
Doesn't say how to get out.
Doesn't say how to get out. So now they said, oh, the law only says you have an election. It doesn't say how many, so we can have 100. No, you can't. No, you can't. This is a specific election that the people of Fall River want it. You can't have an election 6 months later or a year later. You can't do that. You're overturning a vote of the people. Well, like I said, we'll have the council's head. But let's get back to the reality, the human toll. That's what none of these people understand.
Exactly.
Look, these people, they're nice people, but I'm sure that Randy can afford to go to Boston. And I'm sure the rest of them can, too. Their perspective, well, I know some people that are going to move down here. Well, they might move to the Swansea market rate housing and drive to the T, 10 minutes to the T. But I don't believe it's going to have that much ridership, and I'm willing to bet that the ridership will be underestimated, just like when Kenny, many years ago, when I was on the board of Heritage State Park, and Mark Sullivan, rest his soul, was at that meeting, and he predicted 500,000 tourists would come to the carousel, and Mark Sullivan looked at him and said, yeah, he used a couple of expletives, are you effing kidding me? You're going to have 500,000 people getting off 195 to ride derby horses. That was his exact statement. I'll never forget it. And it was prophetic, because it was
exactly.
So this is another thing. But let's look at the human cost. I said that after the show to one of them. I said, listen, it's already adversely impacting the majority of people in Fall River. It's raising rents. People can't afford their rents. I said, elderly people and people on fixed incomes, they're going to lose houses that they've had paid for 20 or 30 years because they can't afford the ever increase in property taxes. There's no control over spending. I said, in fees. And she said, well, I understand that. Well, you do. Well, obviously, that's why I took the time to go over the per capita incomes.
Exactly.
Because, look, these people look at the world in a different way. They're privileged. You know, it's like Martha's Vineyard. What happened to Martha's Vineyard with the signs? We love all the immigrants. There's no such thing as illegal, blah, blah, blah. They got them out of there so fast that their tails are on fire.
That's right.
Get them out of here. Not in my backyard. Well, these people don't suffer the consequences. They can afford their rent. They're not living paycheck to paycheck like 2/3 of the people in this country, let alone in this city. They don't understand that these people are working people who can't afford the new rents. And it's going to me, I don't care what they say, and we can find out. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I don't care. We're not going to get a hell of a lot of people moving to Fall River. And I can tell you what, we will have 5 to 10 times the amount of people displaced from their homes than we have moving into Fall River.
And, you know,
and that takes a horrific human toll.
Yes, it does. And I'll tell you now, the average rental increase in the state of Massachusetts is 6%. In Fall River, it's over 75% rental increase. Why? Because of the T. Because of the T. And when that train finally rolls into town, you're going to see another 25 to 50% increase in the rents. Because they have to. Okay? And you heard them. Well, as soon as the T comes into town, your property value is going to go up. Yeah, but then my taxes go up.
And therein lies your rub about perspective.
Right.
And I had this discussion with an individual because he told me, well, you should be really happy. Your property value is going up, he said. And I told him, I said, you see, that's why, because you're a fairly affluent person. And if you want to sell your house, it's fine. Property value went up. It's appreciated, not depreciated. I said, but that's not the way the average Fall Riverite looks at it. I said, the average Fall Riverite has been brought and brought up, lived their entire life here, owns a home, never plans on selling it, probably giving it to their children, or can't get out of Fall River because they just don't have the means, even if they sell the house, to move some other place, or they're too old. And I said, you know what they worry about when you tell them the property value is going up? Their property tax is going up.
That's right.
That's what they worry about. They worry about their property tax, and they go, oh, no, can I afford to even pay? I don't have a mortgage, but I may not even be able to pay my property taxes anymore. And remember that statistic, CJ, was right now. 6% state average, 75% increase already in the city of Fall River.
Correct.
That is unacceptable, and our mayor has done zero, nada. I don't want to hear Catholic Social Services and now somebody else. Bull. He's out of touch, he's incompetent, and he doesn't care about the average person because he gives the Red Sox fans and the other and the students were going to put on the bike. You know, get your head out of your rectum. Wrap it up, CJ.
Well, they talk about all of this great stuff coming to Fall River with the train, and when Carlos confronted them with that, they were like, "Oh, but you're missing the fact that you have historic." He goes, "What history?" Lizzie Borden, big deal. "Oh no, you have such history in Fall River. You can find. Well, give me one thing." They couldn't.
Of course they couldn't.
Of course not. Okay, so that's what happens. So again, real quickly for you people who are on Social Security, you may have heard last night. Social Security plans an 8.7% increase in your check, which will average out to about $145 a month a piece. But food costs have gone up 13%. So
yeah, so you're losing money.
You're losing money on the whole deal.
And as we wrap it up again, I will extend the invitation to them to come on. We would love to get more information about some of this stuff.
Yes, we would. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. Have a great weekend, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday.